Jonathan, we're going to put you live to air. You're live with Bookstage and Screen. Samantha and Gordon, welcome, Jonathan.
Hi guys, thanks for having me on. Sorry I'm late.
Oh, no problem at all.
It's all right. We just assume that rough stuff is happening, and you're doing something in your vehicle.
Yes, just trying to find a park.
That was a common occurrence when we were off shooting the movie. We had no reception most of the time, so
oh wow.
I am known for being hard to get in touch with sometimes.
Fabulous. Well, let's step back a bit and tell us about this wonderful movie that's just being released all around Australia, Rough Stuff. So tell us a little bit about it, Jonathan.
Well, it's a passion project for me. I've been working on it for about 4 years now, and it really came from a desire for me to really do an Australian movie that got somewhere in between my two favourite Australian movies. So my two favourite Australian movies, The Mad Max and The Castle. They sound very sort of very, very different movies, a bit of a dichotomy there. But, between the two of them, you've got a real action genre thriller and a heartfelt comedy and sort of larrikin comedy. And Rough Stuff is really a kind of a combination of those two things, which is why I say I kind of was trying to get something that was somewhere between the two. So it's really about these outback rovers, I'm calling them, sort of a modern reincarnation of the cowboy of the Old West in Australia. They instead of riding horses, they just drive big four-wheel drive. So it's kind of a modern-day Western. And our lead character is this Buzz, who he's been looking for a hoard of lost gold buried sometime during the gold rushes in the 19th century. And it's sort of a legendary hall called Stray's Gold. And he happens upon, at the beginning of the film, gets an opportunity to go on one last quest for this gold, so he ropes his two right-hand men into it, so Scraps and Abe, and they go off on this great adventure to find the gold.
Fantastic.
That's sort of the setup, and sort of from there it's all thrills and chills and spills.
Now, I did watch the trailer. The trailer's very funny. How did you go about casting this? Because the cast looks pretty good.
The cast are amazing. It's one of those cases where we wanted to cast all fresh faces. So these are all people that you might recognise some of them from here or there, but none of them are really broken through yet. But it was one of those things where partly we got really lucky. We just found people who were just right on the cusp, I think, of superstardom, and just thought also hungry enough that they all had stuff to prove. They all wanted to prove just how good they were, I think. And I like to think that I wrote good roles for them, and therefore that they really had an opportunity to show what they could do, and that there's a variety in what their characters require. There's comedy, as you said, but it's also quite dramatic, and so there's a lot to play there. So look, it's all I can say is I agree. I'm constantly surprised and happy by just how great our cast ended up. And I suppose the other thing to say is that it is an ensemble film, which is one of the unusual aspects. Is that I wanted to do kind of a B grade, old school sort of jungle adventure movie, but the key with those films is that while they were heavy on action, usually the sacrifice was that character development and things like that would be very straightforward, simplistic, two-dimensional. But what I wanted to do with this was to do an old-school B-grade jungle adventure movie, but to do it with an ensemble cast of really well-developed, really well-played characters. So that's one of the interesting elements, I think, of the film.
And when did you start with the idea? What's the process been?
Unbelievably, it was more than 4 years ago. So we actually finished the film quite a while ago now. It was back in June of last year.
Yep.
But it was probably 4 years before that that I actually started working on it, maybe a bit less than 4 years. So that sort of towards the end of 2012 is when I had the idea, I suppose. And it was probably 2 years. It was 2 years from that moment to the day that we started rolling. So today we shot the film. And then it was 2 years again from there until we finished it. So it was a 4 year kind of labour of love. And, I'm 31 years old, so that's what,
a big chunk.
It's a significant portion of my life.
But now you've got your own feature film, so that's pretty amazing.
Well, I'm pretty chuffed.
Yeah.
I'm pretty, the thing is, the way we made it, I got to do what I wanted with it, I suppose. And so, for better or worse, it is the film I set out to make. You know, not necessarily without compromise. There's always compromises, but if you look at the big picture of it, you know, I really got to do what I wanted to do, and not every filmmaker gets to say that, you know. So I'm pretty happy with it in that respect.
So you already mentioned something that you had, you're out of range a lot of the time for modern devices, but was there anything else? Were you familiar with four-wheel driving? Like, is that something you do yourself?
Yeah, it is something that I sort of do recreationally. I will only own a four-wheel drive. I just can't, like, psychologically, I can't, like, buy a hatchback. It's just not, it's just not in my family sort of genealogy. Since I was a kid, I think we used to go on four-wheel drive trips with my family, and my dad and my brother have always been into it. Have always been into it ever since then. And so it is a bit of a part of our lives. I'm not huge, like some people are, really, really into it. I'm sort of, more of a dabbler. But I had enough of a knowledge that I knew that it was kind of an untapped part of the community, both in terms of, being served with a movie about the world, but also that it hadn't been exploited for a story before, or even for how viscerally kind of exciting four-wheel drive action is as an on-screen thing. I mean, we've seen car chases before, but I don't think you've ever really seen an off-road chase before, and that was something that was really exciting to me. Was that, well, this is a whole new kind of vernacular of action, and so that was exciting for me.
Did you destroy any of the vehicles without giving any spoilers? I mean,
well, that was one of the big tricks, was that we couldn't, because the nature of the budget of the film, we didn't have multiple vehicles that we could really work with. And so, one of the challenges of shooting these action sequences is that we had to make them as rough and tumble as possibly could, but without putting the vehicles at risk. And so that was one of the big challenges. I mean, the vehicles had ongoing issues just from being pushed. These are fairly old vehicles. We had a 60 series Land Cruiser, a 1988 model. Right. So it's only just a bit younger than me. But being a Toyota, it just kind of kept on going. But, we had a Land Rover that we went through 3 engines in. Yeah. So there were problems ongoing.
And so with financing your film, did you crowdfund this, or how was this funding?
Crowdfunding, yeah. We did the crowdfunding as a proportion of it. That's really what got us over the line to be able to go ahead and do it. So it was partly by crowdfunding and partly by private investment, and partly as well by Screen Australia.
Oh, okay. And is that the first time that you've gone for funding, or have you done sort of a funding project like that?
Yeah, it is for sure. So what we did is we applied for what we call the producer's offset, which is where they basically throw in a percentage of the budget, right, as a kind of an offset. So it's a bit complicated and boring, but that's how we did it.
Yeah. And is that something you learned along the way? So that's what
absolutely. Yeah. Well, me and my producers, so Kelly and Nicole, Kelly Tomasich and Nicole John Schwager, both their first feature as well. So we were all kind of doing this together. Right. But while I was sort of in the editing suite and working with the composers, working with the visual effects artists and the colorists and all that sort of thing, they were always off filling in documents and forms and sending things back and forward to accountants, lawyers, all that. Under wraps. So it was very, very big, long headed process. They don't make it easy, but as they shouldn't.
Yeah. Now, of course, you've got the exciting part, which is the film's release coming up. So for those of us in Melbourne here, where would we see there's an exciting
So there is a big Victorian premiere event next week, which me and Kelly and Nicole will all be attending. Yeah. So that'll be at the Lido Cinemas in Hawthorne.
Lovely.
And if you can't make that one, there'll be another screening that I'll also be attending on the Friday. It's on the 24th. So the 23rd at the Lido and the 24th at the Cameo in Melbourne CBD. Hopefully, if those screenings go well, then we'll put the film on for a 2-week season in there as well, so people can go and see it. But if you've got the night free, get on down to see it at the Cameo, because if that doesn't go well, then we may not get the season.
Yes, well, you do really have to get that in there at the start, don't you, to support, especially
exactly, yeah,
smaller productions, because they're competing with the big guns, and they get a longer time on at the cinemas. So if you, as we all want to support Australian films, get in there at the start, because that's the telling time for them.
And I'll also say that I have this kind of policy of I don't want you to come down and support me just to support me, but if you think it looks good, and I think you will think it looks good if you seek out the trailer or seek out some of the reviews that we've had as well. The reviews have all been very positive, and if you think it looks like something is interesting, well then maybe go and see it instead of going to see the next big Hollywood movie release. If all things being equal, why not pick the Australian one?
Exactly. And so, what's your next plans, Jonathan?
Well, I'm feeling energised at the moment. I mean, the thing is, even though it's been nearly 8 months since we finished this one, it's just been constant. We did a series of advanced screenings, and then working up to the release now is a lot of work as well. I'm working closely with our distributor, Umbrella Entertainment. So I haven't had a lot of time to actually sit down and work on a script per se. But I've got 3 ideas that I'm developing sort of concurrently, and one of them is a sequel to Rough Stuff, so I'd really like to do that. It's kind of designed with the idea of it being franchisable in mind. A lot of more adventures that the Rovers could go on. I also have an idea for a buddy comedy that takes on the issue of it's a buddy comedy set in outback Australia with a sheriff having to take on like a big crime syndicate out there, and the other one is a kind of spin on kind of Indiana Jones, aging Indiana Jones character who gets sought out by a young adventurer herself, and they go on an adventure together. So I'm sort of developing all these things concurrently, and I just have to make the decision about which one I pull the trigger on and sit down and write.
Well, when you do shoot in outback Australia, that you do get the advantage of a fantastic backdrop, and your film's going to look awesome. But what are the sort of disadvantages that you came across while you were shooting out there?
Well, the issue with location shooting, I mean, our film was literally a location film every day. So most movies have what you call weather cover, where if you happen to have bad weather that day, well then you can go and shoot an interior scene or whatever to make up that time, so you're not losing a day. But in our case, we just didn't really have weather cover. So the issue with shooting location and shooting in these remote locations especially is that you're just at the mercy of the environment completely. So, when we were shooting, we did a lot of shooting around Lithgow. We were based out there for 2 weeks, and we happened to be in the middle of the first snowstorm in 70 or 80 years or something like that. We had to shut down production for 2 days as a result. It wasn't only the fact that suddenly all of our locations were covered in 2 or 3 feet of snow, but also the fact that the snow in the branches of the trees, because the area wasn't used to having any snow, the weight of the snow on the tree branches actually collapsed branches and trees all over the area, so we lost access to our locations and everything. And these are just things that was, what are we going to do? We just have to. We actually spent a morning where we were clearing track, trying to get the unit up into the location. That was part of the adventure of it all, I suppose.
And how much swearing was going on when that snow started coming?
At least half as much as what's in the movie.
Okay, that much, all right.
But I actually think that my director of photography, Jack, he's a real sort of proactive guy, Jack Crombie. And I remember that day he was I think he had the morning of life actually, so I took the cast up, and we hadn't got the vehicles up there yet, so I just drew a big line in the ground, in the dirt, that said, okay, this represents the vehicle, and we started blocking the scene. We were rehearsing the scene until we got the rest of the unit up and the camera and the vehicles and everything so we could shoot. And Jack was leading the charge with, they had a chainsaw and they were chopping collapsed trees, and they were winching things out of the way, and Jack got up the top, and he had this big grin on his face like he was having the time of his life. So, it's okay for some, but yeah.
He wasn't counting the pennies, so it didn't matter.
Yeah.
Well, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds fantastic. We really love to support Australian cinema, and it does look like a really funny, good adventure film. So we encourage everyone to see it, and it'll be touring around Australia. Is that right?
Well, it's opening this week in limited theatres in Queensland, New South Wales and Adelaide.
Yeah.
And it opens next week, as I said before, at the Cameo and the Lido next Thursday and Friday in Melbourne.
Yep.
And so hopefully we'll be expanding into more cinemas as well, but it depends on how well this limited run goes initially. So fingers crossed.
And so to keep an eye on you and the dates, where would people go to find that?
The best place would be to go to our distributor's website, Umbrella Entertainment. If you go to Umbrella Entertainment, there's a big, obvious thumbnail to click on that'll take you to the Rough Stuff page, and that has a list of all the cinemas playing the film. We're also pretty active on our Facebook page, keeping people up to date on what the cinemas are, and you can also get access to the trailer and the television commercial that came out the other day, and lots of other things there. So I'd encourage people to do that. Great.
Well, congratulations to you and all your team, and we look forward to talking about you next week in Box Office, where you're number one.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Jonathan.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Bye-bye.